Hey guys, it's Bro You Whack, and on Tuesday, the mid-season update came out for Overwatch 2. Oh yeah, there are some server issues in competitive. Well, that would seem to be the only issue that Overwatch had. Right, they had to disable mythic skins because there was an issue with that. Well, all that seems to be fixed right now, at least at the time of this recording. But real quickly, by the time this video does come out, I will be live on my Twitch where you can watch to get a free Symmetra skin. Be sure to go check out my Twitch after you watch the video, because I'm gonna be live for a majority of the day. But finally, going back to talking about the mid-season update, besides those little quirks and issues with the update, they also brought the tank buffs that so many people were assuming that were gonna make tanks unkillable monsters, myself included. And in actual execution, I think made tanks playable. What you're watching on the screen right now is a comparison of the tanks before the mid-season patch and then after the mid-season patch. Now this includes the 25% damage reduction whenever you get headshots, and I feel like with Soldier 76, this is a perfect example to show you how much more beefier the tanks are, but they're not super unkillable as a lot of people kind of assume they were gonna be. Obviously, the heroes on the right last just a teensy-weensy bit longer, but you have to remember that this is in a perfect vacuum scenario where Mia Soldier is getting only headshots, the enemy tank is not getting healed, and they're also standing still. So a lot of people exaggerate changes and don't really think about the actual game where heroes are moving and you're getting healed and also abilities are protecting the tank themselves. But when I go into an actual game scenario and I'm playing heroes that especially have a gigantic hitbox, like someone like d.va, that's when I really feel the buff. That's when I really feel like, oh my god, I can finally be a tank. Oh my god, I can finally be at the front line and not feel like I'm just simply feeding by doing my job. I can actually go absorb some damage. If I'm getting low, I have time to fly back to my supports and they can heal me up. Yeah, I don't feel like this all-powerful being that can just press W and keep marching my way into the enemy back line, but I at least have a bigger window of opportunity to just fall back to my team and get healed up. And I use d.va as an early example, one, because I'm a d.va player, but also two, I feel like she's one of the tanks that benefited the most from this change. Orisa's also another example because they both have big old hitboxes, whereas someone like Hammond doesn't really have that big of a hitbox, who I originally thought would have benefited the most from these changes because he has armor, because he's a tank, because of his playstyle with the changes to regenerative health passive. But ultimately, my theories were just kind of wrong all across the board, and I'm kind of glad that I was wrong with all this because, well, once again, as a tank, I just feel like I'm actually able to be a tank, absorb damage, and do my job. Whereas on the DPS side, trying to shoot into a tank, this also didn't feel all that bad. Again, it's only the second day. Maybe we'll find a meta that becomes super annoying and a tank becomes super unkillable and we'll live through that meta for the rest of the weeks, but when playing as like a Soldier or a Sojourn or a Cassidy, I felt like, yeah, okay, I'm not able to kill the d.va or kill the Reinhardt as easier, but at the same time, if they're feeding, if they're just inting and going into our back line, it's still kind of relatively easy to kill them. However, the one time that I did notice that I felt like the tanks were unkillable monsters, I feel like will become a problem later on, is when that tank is getting double pocketed, is when that tank is having a support line that is just able to pour all their heals into them, and on top of that, when the tank matchup is in the enemy tank's favor. Let's say we have like a Junker Queen going into a d.va. That is gonna be a nightmare of a matchup because Junker Queen can't shoot the d.va. The d.va is gonna have way more windows of opportunity to get healed up, and then that d.va is gonna be able to go press W and absolutely annihilate us. What this buff did that I don't really think a lot of people predicted was two things. One, this put the matchup back in the tank's hands, where if you have the better matchup of tanks, then you're probably gonna win the fight. But also, if you are just the better tank player, you will probably win the fight, whereas before the mid-season patch, I felt like it was more in the DPS hands, where if you had the better DPS, you were gonna win. But the second thing that I didn't even really consider was that I felt like this also put more emphasis on support players to help their tank out, because now, if you want the tank to be unkillable, well, you have to pocket them. Now, you have to pour the heals and actually have to provide for the tank. Because they're the only heroes that are able to reduce the damage, in a sense, whenever they get headshots, that means they can provide a lot more space base can actually push in and do some damage themselves. Like, it kind of sounds weird to say because I'm literally just describing basic Overwatch, just describing what it means to play a tank. Your tank pushes in to create space, the supports heal up the tank, and then the DPS provide cover fire and try to get some kills along the way. Just basic Overwatch 101 is now achievable because of the 25% damage reduction of headshots. Again, that's coming from somebody that's played a lot of tank and DPS and not so much support, so I would love to know your guys' thoughts as a support player when playing after this mid-season patch. When it comes to playing with a tank, do you feel like you actually have a lot more value provided for this tank player because they're not dying so quick? Because yeah, they're coming to you with 100 HP, but hey, 100 HP is better than 0 HP, and you just heal the tank up, you get your ult faster, you give your ult to the DPS. It's just like a harmony. You're a system, a machine flowing with each other, and the tank's not dying so quick. Overall, I think when it comes to most of the changes, they made tanks not overpowered, but at least more playable. But the one thing that I will say is pretty overpowered that I think they should try to reduce is the knockback resistance, the boop resistance that tanks have against like Lucios or Brigittas or even Pharahs, because I felt like I was playing Unleashing Tower. Actually, I'll probably play the clip right here where I was just walking on the bridge and Junkrat was trying to concussion mine me off the bridge, and I just wasn't going nowhere. I wasn't really trying to compensate for the boop that much. I just was not moving. I didn't really have to worry about that. And as a tank player receiving the boops, oh, that's awesome. But as someone trying to deliver the boops, even as a tank player, it could be frustrating and annoying. Like there was even a clip on the same game where I was trying to get Orisa off the cliff, trying to javelin spin her, and she was not moving, and then she got pulled eventually when I almost cut her off. But what I'm trying to say here is that, okay, it can be extremely frustrating, especially for a hero that relies on boops like Lucio. Maybe we can just tone it down from like 50% to 40%, because yeah, as a tank player, you want to be able to push the bridge and command and lead without getting booped, but at the same time, you could be told it's like, okay, well, just don't go on the bridge when they have a Lucio or a Pharah and go the other way. So do we hold the tank's hands in that sense, or do we punish them if they make a stupid play like pushing on the bridge? We're just gonna have to see come season 11, because that's when the next patch is gonna come. But overall, my first initial thoughts when it comes to these changes, which could easily change in a couple of weeks, but I feel like they're pretty decent. I think people kind of overreacted when reading it on paper, just like with the health regenerative passive. People thought that was going to be the worst change of all time, and it wasn't. It was not. People overreacted. You didn't really feel it, and if you did, it was in between fights when it really did not matter. It just kept the flow of the game going. And same thing with these changes, where if you're a tank player, it's obviously going to feel better, but it's not going to feel perfect. I feel like you're still maybe going to have a couple of issues with a couple of tanks, but it's at least gonna make tanks maybe more viable, maybe have more importance on the field. And if you suck, well, you might be the reason why you lost, but if you do really good, you're probably a big reason why you won the game. But also give more value with support heroes, and for DPS heroes, you're always gonna have value. Just ultimately, the game of Overwatch is meant for the best team to win. That includes the best tank, best DPS, and best support. And with this change, I feel like it's a stepping stone in the right direction. Is it gonna be the only change we need? Absolutely not, because there's still tons of changes, like with Sigma. Why is he able to ult through walls? That is stupid, that is silly, that needs to change. But ultimately, I like this change. I think this is good. We will see in the next couple of weeks if I go back on my words, but until then, I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. More Overwatch 2 videos to come, and bye.